So thanks to the organizer for the invitation to speak here. I report actually work in progress, actually in 2 papers. So I actually had 27 pages only for the first paper. Okay. So the general framework is what I put down on the blackboard down here. It's a price has a map. Okay, it's a F map from S. S is the exogenous states or primitives. Then Z is some kind of belief. Then L is the leverage. So that's in this paper, I'm going to talk about the impact of belief on leverage, and also all these 3 have impact on the prices. So that the recent global financial crisis give us some kind of hint about the importance of a belief structure. So, for example, after the announcement of Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, suddenly in the economy, everyone becomes so pessimistic. Okay, there's a change to the belief structure. We'd like to understand a little bit more about the structure of the kind of change and how the structure of change have impact on leverage and also on the equilibrium prices. Certainly there's some kind of observation, but certainly we don't have a document there. It's like that before the crisis, people are quite optimistic. And also among those who are optimistic, they are quite diverse. But after the crisis, everyone was somewhat pessimistic. Okay? They are so pessimistic about the bad state. And they are also so diversely in their belief about how bad the state is going to become. So we are going to talk about upper tail homogeneity and the lower tail homogeneity. So that we try to study how the kind of change of belief going to have impact on the economy. Certainly, in a more complete theory, I need to discuss how these kind of beliefs are formed. But here I concentrate on the kind of short-run situations, so that in the long run, hopefully, they are sometimes optimistic, sometimes pessimistic. On average, they are correct. They are consistent with the kind of station measure mentioned by Professor Mordecai Kurz in the morning. So it's possible to make this consistent with the rational belief structure in the long run. But here I'm more concerned with short-run fluctuations of the kind of belief structure. So I'm going to talk about actually 2 directions of attempt. One is to consider this kind of belief structure with more than 3 states. Another direction is to consider a framework with more than 3 periods. These are 2 different attempts because going to be more complicated if you have more states and more periods. So I take up one direction at a time. So certainly there's a collateral constraint. Okay, certainly you can observe that certainly during or before and during global financial crisis, you can see the leverage change endogenously as you see the change in the prices together. So it's some kind of like co-movement of leverage and the price. So there's also a phenomenon we observe, this kind of riskless borrowing and risky borrowing before and during global financial crisis, especially after the announcement of Lehman Brothers bankruptcy. The risky borrowing means that you borrow by issuing some kind of risky bond contract, suddenly shrink. Okay, it's a flight to safety. It's also mentioned by Monica earlier. So we are going to study about the leverage change, especially the structure of heterogeneous belief and role in the change of leverage and the price. And certainly, in the end, will show that under some conditions, leverage and asset price move in some direction, but may not be so in general conditions. Certainly, there's a related literature about endogenous leverage, okay, also work by myself, and about the endogenous uncertainty and also leverage in ET 2011. So let me give you a quick description about the model. We have 3 states. You will know it more clearly later on that why I need 3 states. When I only had 2 states, the many different kind of phenomenon may not appear. So here I have 3 states. This just down, middle, and up. There are 2 assets. One is money, one is the risky asset. Okay, the risky asset pays off the DU, DM, and DD. Okay? And there's a continuum of investors. They have a diverse belief on the probability of different states. And I will reshuffle those kind of agents so it make a higher H belongs to 0, 1. Those kind of agents with higher H will have this kind of first order stochastic dominance over those kind of agents with a lower H. So I try to rank all the agents in one-dimensional line. So this is an assumption of first order stochastic dominance. So I will show at the end of a presentation how to relax this assumption so that we can rank agents in a 2-dimensional simplex. Now, because I adopt this assumption of first order stochastic dominance, that I can rank all of them in just one line, from 0 to 1. So higher H will have a greater optimism. Okay? Then has subjective probabilities, gamma U, gamma M, and gamma D. So the first order stochastic dominance means that gamma U is non-decreasing and gamma D is non-increasing, as in the next diagram. So this is a box diagram I used to represent the belief structure in the economy. Okay? In a more general case, okay, it may not be so monotonic, then we don't have first order stochastic dominance, then we need to consider a simplex later on. But certainly this simplifies the description of belief structure as represented by the box diagram. Okay? That people with a higher H, okay, will believe that the best state, D, will occur with smaller probability. And agent with higher H, we expect the good state, U, will occur with a larger probability. Okay? So as these 2 are satisfied, we don't worry about RM. Okay? They will satisfy the first order stochastic dominance. Certainly, I have other assumptions in order to simplify calculation. One major assumption is that the investors are risk neutral. Okay? They will decide on their trading policies based on the kind of payoff and the subjective probabilities. So investor can trade money. It means that it's like a 1-to-1 return. And also, they can borrow with the leverage and collateral of the risky asset. So the risky asset cannot be short-sold, but they can be used as collateral in order to borrow. Okay, so this is very similar to the asset-backed securities as we can observe during financial crisis, okay, or the repo. Then we have a borrowing contract, theta. It's with the face value theta. Okay? That's normalized so that for each contract, they have 1 unit of a risky asset as collateral. Okay? So this is a normalization. So that we use this to support our borrowing, so that we need to specify what kind of face value going to emerge in equilibrium, the theta. Actually, with such a simple framework with 3 states, there are only 2 possible face value going to emerge in equilibrium. And so that other variables here, the price of the risky asset itself, the Q. Then the borrowing contract, theta, okay, has a price of P subscript theta. So that the first proposition here is that only 2 borrowing contract with face value of D subscript D and D subscript M going to emerge in equilibrium. Okay? And we can also find out, because there's money in the economy, so the contract of DD is actually riskless. It's riskless. Okay? So that has a collateral. You borrow and has a face value of DD, and the collateral going to pay you at least DD. So the collateral will help you to reach riskless borrowing. So the first contract over there is riskless borrowing. The second contract with the face value DM is a risky contract, a risky borrowing with collateral. So that because we have money, so that the price of a contract DD is equal to DD, the price of contract DM has a price less than DM. So this can be verified. So we can also find out there are 4 possible kinds of trading strategies. One trading strategy is that quite optimistic agent, they are going to buy asset Y. It's a risky asset. They borrow money through the risky borrowing contract or the risky bond to finance the purchase using the asset Y as collateral. So that you can see that this is a kind of situation where asset-backed security or MBS. The second kind is that you buy asset Y, but you borrow money through riskless contract. Okay? That you use Y as a collateral. Okay? So there's a case with lower face value. Then the third strategy is to sell the risky asset and lend money through the risky contract. Okay, this is corresponding to the other side of strategy 1. Then is strategy 4, corresponds to the other side, strategy 2. Okay, so only 4 of these kind of strategies. So we can characterize in such a simple framework with risk-neutral agent, we can characterize the kind of situations. So there are 2 possible cases. One is the trading with risky asset. Okay, I rank agents to put most optimistic agent near 1. So those kind of agent, in the first case, going to buy asset leveraged by the risky contract, the risky bond. Then next to them will be the agent that buy asset leveraged by riskless contract. And then I have the agent with strategy 3, sell asset and buy risky contract. The last one, the sell asset and buy riskless contract. So because I have this kind of structure, so I can characterize this as one of possible equilibrium. And also under some other conditions, also another possible case is a case 2, without risky contract. So this actually an outcome when we encounter the announcement of the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy. All the agents try to get out of the risky lending. Actually, they fly to safety, so that the agent cannot issue risky contract okay, they can only lever by selling all this kind of riskless bond. So that this is case 2, without risky contract. Without risky contract. And certainly, there's a counterpart of the kind of strategy to sell asset and buy riskless contract. So that these are 2 cases, and we can characterize how the belief structure is going to have impact on the kind of equilibrium configuration, either with case 1 or case 2. So, there's a lemma about how people use different kinds of strategies. And also, there's conditions about when they are going to have risky borrowing. Risky borrowing, the case 1, okay? The case before the global financial crisis, okay? We have risky borrowing and we have risky contract. And so that they have more heterogeneity of belief in the upstate than in the downstate. It's a condition. So that uses to describe the situation before global financial crisis. Okay? So it's the observed phenomenon with the existence of risky contract. Then we can make some kind of inference about the possible belief structure, existing belief before the global financial crisis. They have heterogeneity of belief in the upstate, more in the upstate than in the downstate. So there's also a discussion about if there's a heterogeneity of belief lie more in the downstate, in the upstate, then case 2 will occur. So there's certainly the different kind of conditions for the case 1 and case 2 will emerge in equilibrium. So here, I have some example, numerical example to show up the equilibrium prices with a different kind of belief structure. So this is a case with risky borrowing. The case with risky borrowing, people agree on the down states. So this is the wrong diagram. The next diagram is the correct one. Okay? They have the same kind of belief about how bad the situation is going to occur. Okay? So I think that the economy is going to be either good or better. To be good or better, but not going to be in the bad state. Okay? They have a different belief about how good the economy is going to be in a very good state or in the middle state. But agree that the economy is not going to run into trouble. So this is a case which is lower tail homogeneity. In a lower tail homogeneity case, actually example 1, okay, with all the numbers over there, but diagram was on the second page. So the nested diverse belief, for down state, they somewhat agree. They disagree on the upstate and middle state. Then with this kind of situation, I quote the lower tail homogeneity. Lower tail homogeneity gives rise to the kind of emergence of risky borrowing, like ABS and this kind of repo and the MBS kind of trading. Then with second example, it's upper tail homogeneity. Upper tail homogeneity, I use the previous diagram. Okay? Means that after global financial crisis, people don't expect the economy to turn around to be a very good state. So that they are somewhat not so hopeful about a good state happening in the future, in the next period. But they disagree on how bad the state is going to be. Either to be really bad or in the middle range. Okay? So it's upper-tail homogeneity. So upper-tail homogeneity. So this example describe upper-tail homogeneity by the diagram of a previous page. Sorry about that. So they have a somewhat similar kind of view about the future. The economy is not going to turn around to become really prosperous as before. But they agree about that. They disagree about whether the economy is going to plump back into a very bad state or stay in the middle. They disagree on the middle and down state. So this is a case where upper tail homogeneity can be used to describe the situation after global financial crisis. So it's a case that the risky borrowing disappear quickly. So example 1, example 2 are extreme cases. Then you are somewhere in between. You can come up with a case that's somewhere in between. Then you are going to see the proportion of risky contract in the economy will change as you move from one extreme case to another extreme case, move between example 1 and example 2. So you can see how the risky borrowing going to shrink originally, then in the extreme case, disappear. Okay? No one going to borrow with a risky asset. But certainly, the real world is somewhere in between. We point out the two extreme cases. The real economy may be somewhere between the two extreme cases. I call up-tail homogeneity and lower-tail homogeneity. Then we can also consider the co-movement of leverage and the prices. This is a movement, this is a measurement of the average leverage. Okay? It's total asset value divided by total asset value minus total money borrowed. So that, I can also consider the kind of complex statistics about how the belief structure is going to have impact on the BU. Okay? And alpha is the amount of or the proportion of risky asset used in the economy. Okay? So there's a market share of alpha. This is somewhat in between. So I mentioned two extreme cases. Then this is a case in between those two extreme cases. So as one parameter, BU. Okay, BU means that there's some kind of diversity increase. Means the difference, diverse belief about upper tail increase. There's a BU increase. Okay, then the proportion of risky borrowing in the economy going to increase. So it's a general situation. Then also for the BD is the different kind of difference of belief in a lower tail. As this increase, the proportion of alpha decline. So we can consider this some kind of complex statistics as a belief structure change to have an impact on the composition of risky borrowing and riskless borrowing in the economy. Also, that we are going to see this kind of impact of a belief structure change on the asset prices. Okay? We can decompose of this kind of belief structure movement into two components. One is the aggregate component. Okay? That means that, for example, that everyone becomes more pessimistic. It's the aggregate component. And it's some kind of level shift. The other possibility is that the differential component will become people become more diverse in their expectation. Okay? It's also a possible change in this direction. So I consider two economies, economy 1 and economy 2. Okay? Then economy 1, that they have diverse belief on the upper tail, or upper tail. More diverse belief in upper tail. So the second economy somewhat upper tail homogeneity. Upper tail homogeneity. So it somewhat corresponds to the situation I described before. So I can decompose this kind of change into two parts. So that we can see that first, the aggregate component, okay, have an impact on the asset price. In the previous slide, I changed the belief structure so that we move in two steps. So this is the original price, okay, 2.37. For the economy 1 is the economy we mentioned more like the economy before global financial crisis. Now afterwards, you are here. The leverage also higher in the economy before global financial crisis, and the leverage becomes lower in the second economy. And this can be somewhat decomposed into several different ways. Okay? One is to decompose to that the change of price is to 2.25. Okay? The original 2.37, then decompose to 2.37 to 2.25. Then finally, it can change 2.16. So that the second component, or the differential component of the belief change, going to account for the leverage effect. So mostly the leverage effect comes from the differential component of the belief change. So the leverage effect accounts about 57% of total drop. Okay? So that as a belief change, you have impact on the endogenous leverage. The leverage has a direct impact on the price. Okay? There's an indirect channel of belief change on the equilibrium price. Certainly, the belief structure also going to have direct impact on the equilibrium price. So with this example, we try to capture the kind of two channels. One is a direct channel from belief structure to the asset price. The other one is indirectly through the leverage, then on the equilibrium prices. So there's some computation about the decomposition. So this is flight safety phenomenon I mentioned before. Okay? So we also have some kind of stylized fact, certainly not very strong empirical support, but I read some description about investors' attitudes. Before the crisis, investors held uniformly low probability towards a recession. Okay? So that they only disagree about how good the economy is going to be. They don't believe that the best day is going to occur. So the best day, they have a quite agreement on the best date. So it's a lower tail homogeneity, and with upper tail disagreement. Okay? It's because they have disagreement, then they have more leverage. So it's a situation may be related to the economy before global financial crisis. But once you get bad news, the market belief may change. Okay? The probability of boom is considered to be very low, uniformly. So that's upper tail homogeneity, what I called, along with the lower tail disagreement. So how bad it's going to be? So it's a middle state and down state. Then for this kind of situation, there's economy 2. For the first paragraph there, economy 1. So you have movement from economy 1 to economy 2 with deleveraging and also a decline of asset price. Okay? So I try to relate this kind of observed phenomenon and try to provide some kind possible theory of a belief structure change to this kind of, to provide this kind of explanation for the observation. Certainly, the change of belief structure can cause the market share of risky borrowing to fall and haircut to rise during global financial crisis. So that we can see a degree of belief disagreement affect the use of a risky contract. Okay? There's a distribution I mentioned before. Certainly, from the economy 1 to economy 2, I described before, the two channels happen to work in the same direction during global financial crisis. So as we see a fall of asset price, a fall of leverage also at the same time. So it's a deleveraging endogenously by the agents in the economy without exogenous imposing any kind of policy instrument. These are all endogenous change of asset price and the leverage level in the economy. Certainly, what I described before is a simple framework with many restricted assumptions. One of the important assumptions is first-order stochastic dominance. First-order stochastic dominance in a two-dimensional diagram is a downward sloping curve. Downward sloping curve. So it means that when RU increase, RD decline. There's a first-order stochastic dominance. But certainly, if we drop the assumption of the stochastic dominance, first-order stochastic dominance, we need to consider the whole simplex, not just this curve. So we put this curve in one dimension and become 0, 1 in our previous analysis. But certainly, we consider simplex. There are certainly some work to do. In general, quite promising. We get already some preliminary results. And this is about the focus of this paper with the 3 states, where you can see quite rich configuration of the kind of trading strategy and the equivalent outcomes. This is the first paper I want to say about. Okay. Oh.